have anxiety.
Hi, my name is Gemma Wise and I used to suffer from what could be described as quite severe levels of OCD. Now it's more moderate.
Hi, my name is Eloise Hardy and I suffer from clinical depression and generalised anxiety disorder.
Hi, my name is Emma and I suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder, depression and anxiety.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophie and I'm diagnosed with cyclothymia and social anxiety disorder.
I'm Max and I, in the past, have struggled with anxiety and a maladaptive personality, which means that my brain assumes the worst sometimes about pretty much anything.
Hi, my name is Katriana and I suffer from borderline personality traits.
Currently, it's been quite tough. My OCD is a maladaptive way of me attempting to feel as if I have control over a situation, or trying to ensure that a definite outcome occurs. This feeds into my anxiety because I then mull over every possible outcome of a scenario. In terms of the coronavirus, we all have little control over what's currently happening and we don't know what to expect. As a result of this, my compulsions have increased tremendously. My compulsions are that I have to do specific tasks an even amount of time. Also, having so much time on my hands means I have all this extra time to worry and analyse situations. Yeah, there have been quite a few mornings where I don't want to get out of bed just because it's been hard to find a reason to wake up and start the day. But look, it's not all bad. This is just a little dip in the road. That's the nature of mental illnesses. There will always be situations that cause a spike in your conditions, but I'm in a much better situation to manage these when they arise compared to when I was first diagnosed about 7 years ago. That was a time when my anxiety stopped me from functioning normally on a day-to-day basis. But now it's more just about keeping tabs on when I do notice a peak and then trying to work through the causing factors.
Now I'm doing a lot better than I did. In year 11 and year 12 was when my OCD was at its worst, just because of VC and like all the stress. At the time I was seeing a psychologist and I was lucky for me that the first psychologist I saw worked for me. That doesn't happen for everyone. And after a while I went on medication and I was lucky that the first dosage and medication that I tried worked for me. Got rid of most of my anxiety and eventually after maybe 3 years I could get rid of majority of my rituals. But yeah, now mainly OCD just affects me socially, just overanalyzing things that I say, making me say things that I don't want to say. But apart from that, I'm able to live a normal life and I'm much happier where I am now compared to where I used to be.
People who struggle with borderline personality traits aren't bad people, they're not mean people. They just have trouble regulating their emotions and their moods. Sometimes they have trouble with relationships. And the best thing you can do is just try and support them and not judge them for what they're going through.
Some people think that mental illness is simply not real. This is innately incorrect, and we now know that mental illnesses are complex ailments that have biological, sociocultural, and psychological perpetuating factors. Genetics and chemical imbalances are often at the core of many mental illnesses. Therefore, people that are diagnosed deserve the same compassion and respect that those with more physical ailments are afforded. Another misconception is that people can simply choose not to feel this way. This is innately damaging and again, incorrect. People might say that go for a run and that will cure mental illness. However, for severe cases, medication, therapy and hospitalisation are necessary steps for recovery and should not be stigmatised. Comments such as go for a run are ultimately patronising and trivialise the experience of those that are suffering.
Everyone's mental health goes in waves no matter who you are, and everyone has rough patches to varying degrees. And I think that having a psychologist shouldn't necessarily only be used for serious textbook cases of depression or anxiety or of any other mental illness, because even if there's something about your behaviour or one of your friendships or anything, even if it seems trivial that you can't work out, having someone like that to speak to in confidentiality about anything can help. Even if your mental health is at a 90%, it can still help raise it an extra 5%.
Is the way that we think it's supposed to look.
So my anxiety sort of manifests in a way where I have these really irrational fears surrounding death, and a lot of people dismiss that as just phobias because, you know, they say, oh, you're really happy and positive and smiley, like you don't look like someone who's mentally ill. But I think this just goes to show that it's so important to acknowledge that mental health issues come in all shapes and sizes, and all are perfectly valid, even if you think the things that you're struggling with might seem unimportant or not a big deal to other people. You can't control how you feel, so how you feel is valid, and it is so important to accept that, especially right now. I think if we can change and broaden our understanding of how mental illness can look, then we can broaden our conversation too, which will just allow us to understand mental illness better and be better equipped to look for the signs, not only in our loved ones, but in ourselves too.
The best way to get rid of some misconceptions might be to explain a little bit more about what OCD is. Everybody's OCD is different, but for me, it was basically like my brain would not stop thinking. Every hour, every second of the day, new thought. I'd be over-analysing every single thing I did, being hard on myself, being like, you said this wrong, you didn't do this right. It would also be having thoughts constantly put into my head, like catastrophic thoughts, disturbing thoughts, things you don't want to think, very irrational things. And to get rid of the anxiety and the guilt that these thoughts cause, a lot of people develop rituals. They can be like turning a light switch on and off a certain amount of times, and they build up over time, and it just becomes a lot. It can take you hours to do things. It used to take me hours to do homework because if I wrote below the line, I'd have to erase the whole sentence because I thought I was gonna fail my next test. You just kind of want to stop all the thoughts coming in. You want to stop thinking about it. You just want your brain to stop thinking.
You can't rationalize someone's fears or anxieties to them. When someone is anxious or, in more extreme cases, having a panic attack, their body is physiologically reacting as if there is a danger. I'd like to compare it to when you feel nauseous. You get the chills, your face goes pale, and the only thought running through your head at that point is, I'm going to be sick. So you can imagine how difficult it is to convince yourself that your anxiety is not based on a reality when your body is telling you otherwise.
Not everyone looks like they're suffering from a mental illness, so you should talk to all of your friends and make sure they're doing okay during the quarantine, which has been really hard on everyone.
Hi, my name is Phoebe Nadenbush. I wanted to talk about the mental repercussions of sexual assault and rape. This is purely from my own experience. So how it affected my mental health: I had a lot of flashbacks, I had a lot of sadness and anger, there was a lot of fatigue, and for me it took understanding that it was something that never should have happened in the first place, but something that my body has had to deal with. It was dehumanizing, and it was a violation of bodily autonomy. And it was really unnatural and something that was sort of a shock to the system in terms of mental health and physical health. So how I got through it was by talking to people, mental health care professionals, my family, my friends, reaching out to people who I knew this has happened to, which seemed like a scary thing to do, but unfortunately it's affected so many people in our community. So there are those networks which are really important to reach out to. Also for me, I found that exercise, finding creative outlets, whether it be yoga or painting, baking, face masks, Netflix, and things to just take your mind off it, and things just for yourself. And it really takes time and compassion for yourself to understand what's happening, it's really frustrating, but it's a long process, and you just have to trust that eventually it'll get better. Good luck in isolation.
For self-care recently, I've been keeping in touch with my friends. Being able to talk to them online is a huge help because I always feel like I've got some support. But the other thing I do a lot is journaling, because I feel like you can help organize your thoughts. You can keep all your things that are worrying you in one place, and it really helps me to just keep everything organized and have a look back over the different weeks to see what I was dealing with.
I take antidepressants as well as do things that make me happy, like exercising, hanging out with my dog, and talking to my friends.
So currently puzzles have been my best friend. It's one thing that I currently have control over, and it helps me focus that nervous energy somewhere. More generally, however, I do find a run is really helpful just because I'm able to focus my attention on the song I'm currently listening to, and it means I get a rest from everything else that's going on up there. It's also great because you do get that release of endorphins, which always leaves me feeling very chirpy.
Remaining social, I'm really lucky to have an amazing and inspiring friendship group at uni, and having those connections has definitely helped.
I've been trying to do something creative every day, so I actually have been learning the ukulele, not very well, but I've been trying. So I've just been writing some songs, writing poems, just like little stories, things like that, because that's how I like to express myself creatively, and it sort of just gives me a nice break.
Definitely doing things I loved. So in year 11 and year 12, I played like 3 sports because it helped kind of distract me. It was the thing where like my brain could focus on. But sometimes it's not always good to push your thoughts away, especially in OCD when you're like constantly thinking every second, and it's hard to push all those thoughts away after a while. I also found that going on like long walks and just kind of in general acknowledging that those thoughts are there. You don't need to like go really deep into them, just let them pass by. And then when you get back, it's easier to focus on what you need to do.
I'm lucky enough to have been able to, for the most part, overcome the illness, but it still does affect certain aspects of my life, and it certainly does come in waves. And when it does, I like to take a week or 2 to just chill out and spend a lot of time with my family and my friends, who are the people that I can trust the most with anything. And I like to do little things for myself and spend time with myself, doing different activities. I'll go for walks, go to the beach, and things like that, just to take away the intensity and the pace of my otherwise very busy life, because those are some of the things that can set me off.
One of the best things you can do is reach out and talk to people you trust. They'll be able to help you figure out the best course of action, something that'll get you on the right track to figuring out what's going to make you feel better.
Talk about it and tell someone, because chatting about it can make things a lot easier.
There are so many avenues for help. You haven't chosen to feel this way, however you can choose to actively participate in recovery. Through Medicare, you can get 6 to 10 free counselling sessions after a GP referral. And we also have a fantastic psych team here at UniMel that'll be more than happy to help you. Just know that you are valid, worthy of happiness, and that there is no shame in sickness.
It's a journey. It has lots of ups and downs. It might suck, and there's no quick fix, but it is so worth it to go on that journey to better your mental health. There are friends, family members, people out there who are willing to help you. It might be hard to reach out at first, but just do it. Reach out to me if you have any questions or anything. I'm so willing to try and help to the best of my ability. And also, while there are family and friends out there who can help you, it's not a substitution for professional health. Seeking professional help is very important. If you're feeling down or anything like that, or you have any thoughts or feelings that you might need it, just go do it, don't hesitate. Everybody's problems are relevant to themselves. It's important that you prioritize your mental health and seek the professional help that you need.
We're not going to be saying, yeah, I went for a run every single day, I learned this instrument, I wrote a book, I got all H1s at uni. It's not a productivity competition. We're going to be looking back and saying we survived. And if that's all you do, that is enough.
Mental illnesses are a product of the brain. They don't reflect on you as a person or your strength of character. It was when I realised this that I was able to embrace them, share my story, and not feel ashamed for having them, because I think that's the issue with the stigma surrounding mental illness. It makes us think that we are to blame for what's going on in our head, and it's totally not the case. It's just the fact that we process information in an unhelpful way. And if you are watching this and thinking, I'm never going to get better, trust me, you will. Take it from someone who was a firm believer at the beginning that they weren't going to make any progress. It does get easier to manage, and you will gain back control over your life. Despite the times when I'm at my lowest of lows, in the end I will always come back to the fact that the amazing emotions and feelings that you get to experience by living outweigh all the negative ones that tell you it's not worth it. These moments make you stronger, and never underestimate that strength.